Hi, welcome along to the latest Bluffer's guide for the BMW 12.0 series. Just a quick note before we get started. I'm giving away $15 of iRacing credits to one lucky subscriber who likes and comments on any video that I launched during February. If you're not a subscriber already, you know what to do, and I'll be picking the winner at the end of the month. So welcome along to the largest city in Brazil. It's also the home to the legendary Brazilian Grand Prix, has been since the 70s. Interlagos is really a track where momentum is key. You know, it's challenging as much as you really need to focus on the racing line to make sure you're really maximising the opening of the corners, and you'll really want to be extra careful with your steering inputs and your throttle and brake inputs just to keep the car balanced and under control. It's a tall order here, but we'll do our best and see how we go. During practice, I got a 128.72 with an optimal of 128.45. So I'm pretty happy with that. I think anything in the very low 129s and late 128s consistently across the sort of 7-8 laps that you'll be doing here, maybe 9 or 10 actually, in a 12-minute race is really gonna serve you well. It's worth the extra practice here. So we'll do the usual thing. We'll start with our usual in-car lap, and then we'll half speed that with a little bit of light commentary, and then finally we'll kind of go to our far chase camera mode and really explore all the braking points, apexes and exits. So let's get on with it. Okay, so as we're approaching the line, we want to make sure we're right over the right-hand side of the track here. The first complex is really tough. We're braking just before the 50. We're keeping it out to the right, and then under the bridge, we want to start our turn in, trail braking heavily in, get on the gas just as we brow the corner, and then just a little lift to help us round that little right. And then we want to ride this curb round to the left. Really gentle on the steering wheel. The car can get pretty unsettled. And then we've got this nice long straight. You might notice the new livery on the car. New driving team. Fiercely forward. We've already had a 5th in the Bathurst 12. So check it out on Facebook and Insta. So we're down to 3rd, and then we're down to 2nd, and we're turning in and getting on the gas really early here. 2nd's great because it stops you from ploughing wide in 3rd. It just doesn't quite work in 3rd. Coming in nice and tight back to the inside of the track. We don't need to use anything beyond the middle of the track here. And far over to the left, and just as we go past the Marshall hut, we're on the brakes about 30-40%, bleeding out quite quickly, and then holding quite tight on this corner. Coming out wide and then braking quite heavily here, all the way down second down to first. Late apex here, on the gas for a brief period up to second, and then dabbing those brakes and pulling, keeping really tight round here and back on the gas. Pretty early here because we've got a wide exit out. I didn't have a great exit on this lap, but it was my best lap. Braking quite heavily again, down into first once more. Another reasonably late exit, apex here. We're out, but trying to come out about mid-track. And then turning in nice and gently and gradually around here. If the track's hot, this can be very slippery around this corner. Now we want to use all of the track to the right here. We're braking down into second and trailing in quite fast to this apex before jamming the gas on. I say jamming, we want to be quite sensible here. And then back round to the inside. And we've got this really long sweeping left-hander that we want to cut off as much as we can, starting here. And we're riding that curb and keeping it nicely planted firmly on the inside. Now, we're actually technically in the pit lane at the moment. It's perfectly permissible to be here. You're not going to get a penalty for that. And that concludes our lap. So a 1:28. Quite happy with that. Let's have a look at the exploded view. Okay, so we're making our way over to the right nice and gradually. Trying to minimise our steering inputs all around that last section to keep the speed up as high as we can. Now, we're going to brake really heavily on the far right of the track, just a little bit before the 50 marker. We're going to brake deep and heavy, keeping the car over to the right-hand side of the track. We're braking a good 80-ish% here, maybe a little bit more. And we need to gun down through those gears all the way down to second as quickly as we can. That extra engine braking is really going to help us out. Now, as we go under the bridge, and ignore the shadow because that shadow will move, but as we go under the bridge, we want to start our turn in, and it's a very, very late apex here. So we're very gradual around here. We're bleeding the brakes. We're keeping those brakes on as we turn in, just to control our entry here. We don't want to use all of this curb. We only want to use the first half of it. That second half, and I'm really close to it there, is gonna mess up your car. We're going over a hill. The car's going to get light. It's going to be unsettled from the curb. So we don't want to use the entire curb there. You're going to have a bad day. So we're going to come out as close to the middle of the track as we can, as far over the left as possible, so we can start our turn in quite early. And we don't really, we want to minimize the amount we're taking our foot off the gas, but a light lift here is really going to help turn the car in. You can ride as much of this curb as you want, but do go light on the inputs here. If you're turning more than kind of a half turn on the steering wheel, then you're having problems with your line. So we want to ride this curb round. Again, we don't want to get onto the other half of that curb, just the nearest half. And then let yourself sort of float out wide, so we can minimize our turning angle and unwind that steering wheel. We need to make sure that we're not any wider than this. The green stuff is going to cause you problems, and one wheel on that grass there, and it's an off-track penalty. So we're whizzing down this back straight, keeping on the right. You're going to get right to the top of fifth gear, and then right here, just before that little concrete entry, just on the 100 board, we're going to jam on the brakes, and again, gun down through those gears, right down to third, and we're at full braking at the moment, about 85%, pretty heavy braking. And then as we start the turn in, just before the curb starts on the left hand, on the inside of the track, we're going to get it down to second, really bleed off, increase that steering angle, and we want to hug this curb. And you're quite, it's absolutely fine to ride it. And and you really want to sort of make sure you've got the car turn as much as you can by the time that little access road starts. So you can get on the gas and really accelerate out wide towards the outside of the track with a light steering angle, and that's going to give you your best kind of fastest route around that corner. We're going to maintain that steering angle and cut off as much of this corner as we can. We don't need to go out to the right here. We can just stay right over to the left hand side of the track, keeping it as short as possible. And as we approach the next bend, we want to keep an eye out for the Marshall Tower coming up on the left hand side. Just as we're reaching that, we want to sort of apply the brakes, slip it down into third. We're probably braking about 40, 45%, maybe 50% tops. Slipping down to third and then easing off and turning in to catch this apex. We want to be nice and tight to that inside. Now, we don't want to float out wide here. We don't actually need to, but we're just bleeding out of the brakes till the middle of the track here, and then we're getting back on the gas nice and progressively. If you notice how gentle that acceleration is there, and we're doing that A, to keep the car under control, and B, to make sure we're pointing in towards the inside of the track on the inside of this curb here, so we don't miss the exit. Now, there's a line, a tyre line coming down, and it's now intersecting with the car. That's your braking marker. We want to brake pretty heavily, 70-75%, but actually start turning quite early here. We're going to go all the way down into first, but we're going to leave first gear until the last moment. And then we're apexing quite late here and back on the gas, again, relatively gently. It's really easy to get your wheels spinning here, and we don't want that. You're going to lose so much time. And then quickly off the gas, and we want to hug this left-hander. It's a tight left-hander, but we are taking it in second. So we're going to gently trail in, make sure we get close to the curb. Now, I could have got close to the curb here, and then we're back on the gas at the middle of the apex. And we can go on the gas quite hard here. As long as you're tight to the inside, there's a nice kind of lean to the track there that's going to stick you to the road. Plenty of exit track to play with here. I actually lost it a little bit there. I probably lost a tenth or so, but it was by far my best lap, so I'm happy with that. Coming back over to the left now, we want to brake by this start of the curbing and bring it down, right down into first again. And we're looking for a late apex once more. We want the car pointing as far into the straight as we can at this point. Come out sort of mid-track, tilt out to the right slightly, and then we want to be looking to that apex in the distance on the left-hand side here, and bringing the car in with a really gentle steering angle because we want to maximize our speed around here. And then we want to apex right on the inside, on the darker portion of the curb. And we've got a lot of exit to play with, but the 1X is a little bit tricky here. Any wider to the right at this point right now, and you're going to get a 1X. It's funny like that. So this blob of dark track here is your braking point right in front of the car. We're going to come down into second quite fast, but we're going to trail off really quickly. We're not holding that brake for ridiculous amounts of time. We want to be trailing off by the time we exit this part of the track and turning in at the end of that bit of the track too. And we're looking up ahead to the apex on the left, and we're bleeding right out of the brakes really, really quickly. We're taking this surprisingly quickly and on the gas before we hit that apex. And we can take some of the curb here on the left. The car's really nicely turned in at this point. And we're very, very light. We've only gone up to about 60% throttle. Make sure the car's settled, and then we're pushing it to 100%. Letting the car push out wide, just maintaining that gentle steering angle so we can maximize our speed and just keep it held there. You can use the extra run off to the right there as well. Just be careful. Obviously, you don't want to wheel on the grass. We're hugging back in now on the inside of the track. We don't want to be out there on the outside. We're just going to slow ourselves down a good 2 or 3 tenths. I don't really recommend overtaking on the outside here either, because you run out of track on this corner surprisingly quickly. Now we're going to cut off some track here and bring it in nice and tight. And then we're going to keep on this inside. And we're effectively going to take ourselves into the pit lane. Nice and tight to the left. We're not going to get an off track. We're not going to get a penalty of any kind for doing this. It's just the shortest route here, and iRacing lets us do it, so we do it. Obviously, we want to miss this barrier, but keep it nice and tight, and then just angle it ever so slightly out towards the outside of the track so we can set ourselves up nicely for the next lap. So that was my 128.7 around Interlagos. If this video is useful, please do like the video. Please do subscribe and hit the little bell. It really helps tickle Google's algorithm and get my videos out as far and wide as possible. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you have a brilliant week racing here. Fingers crossed I'll see you out there on the track. And I'll see you soon, hopefully with a race from here and some races from the other series that I run too. IMSA, ILMS and VRS GT Sprint. Got some great tracks this week there in those series, so watch out for those. Have a great week. Cheers.